No, we can jump right in.
Okay.
And Stacey, thanks for giving an update on Stacey's been working hard with an internal team to get the FarmBeats student kits, which some of you I think have seen before, the first version of the student kits. We brought them to a hackathon at Cornell it was last year and the year before. And so this is the version, would you say 2.0, Stacey? This is a new kit.
It's a brand new kit, a new way of putting the kits together, but it's still, basically the same hardware. It's just a different way of students to interact with it.
All right, well, take it away. Thanks.
All right, I went ahead and I recorded a video for this, so I'll just share the video, and then if you have questions after, we'll have plenty of time for questions. So let me go ahead and share that.
And just for everyone that's joining now, we have reversed the order. So we have Stacey kicking off with a summary of the new FarmBeats student kits, and then Gloire will present on his work second.
All right, let me know if the audio does not start coming through, but hopefully I shared this correctly. Let's go ahead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to this month's University FarmBeats Community Workshop. This month, I wanted to take a few minutes and introduce you to the FarmBeats for Students Kit, Precision Agriculture Experiences for School and Home. I'll start with a brief video with program highlights.
Today's farms are beginning to look a lot more like smart cities. Digital signals connect people to each other, to the cloud, and to data. Growers are using multiple sensors to collect a more complete view of their crops. Their insights drive decisions like turning on irrigation systems, indicating where fertilizer should be applied, and predicting crop yields based on weather patterns. By applying computer vision and artificial intelligence, growers are seeing their crops in new ways, which helps them with crop monitoring, discovering inefficiencies, and unlocking new insights to improve food production. The FarmBeats for Students program brings these modern tools into the hands of today's learners. The affordable hardware kit and curriculum is designed to give students hands-on experiences in applying digital techniques to food production. Using an array of sensors that measure soil moisture, light, humidity, and temperature, students can stream, visualize, and analyze data in Excel. Additionally, working with curated data collections provides them with first-hand experience using the power that big data can bring to gaining insights into food production. Students can also build, train, and apply custom deep learning models to help track and inform plant health. Using the LOA application, students experience how computer vision is changing how we literally see data. FarmBeats for Students is designed to introduce every learner to the concepts of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and data science. By focusing on growing food, students can begin to easily see the connections between using modern tools and the jobs to be done. FarmBeats for Students is designed to provide access and understanding to the data-driven agricultural techniques that are rapidly changing the way the land is being worked and the way the land will work for us in the future.
There's a lot of great information in that video, but I'd like to dig a little bit deeper and show you some more about the FarmBeats for Students kits. The goal of the kits is to empower every learner to apply AI to solve a real-world problem while also acquiring basic AI and data literacy. We're framing that education in the platform of digital agriculture. We introduce students to AI and machine learning. We talk about SDG Global Challenge number 2, Zero Hunger, and we also highlight the importance of responsible AI. Some of you might remember the old FarmBeats kits that included a Raspberry Pi and sensors, and we used those kits with students at the Cornell Hackathon way back in 2020, if you can remember that far back. The new kits have similar hardware, but instead of having a dashboard built in IoT Central, these kits have students working with Excel to visualize the data. The kits have 3 complementary parts. There's hardware developed in coordination with Seed Studios. There's free curriculum developed in coordination with the National FFA organization. and their student experiences using Microsoft tools and products like Excel and Loeb. The hardware is still a Raspberry Pi and environmental sensors, and it's still an indoor kit, but we're encouraging students to dig in the dirt and use them outside, which is part of what makes FarmBeats for Students such a great tool to capture students' attention. The thing that's great about digital agriculture as a platform to teach students about AI, machine learning, and how it's both a positive and potentially negative influence on us every day is that it's tactile. It's no secret that different learners have different learning styles, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and the FarmBeats for Students package checks all those boxes, particularly the hands-on tactile method. We're focusing on older kids, but these kids still benefit from a play-based physical activity that increases their concentration and self-confidence. They're more engaged and they're more open to other messages and learning objectives. The kits can be purchased with or without the Pi directly from Seed Studios by individuals or in bulk for use with the rest of the FarmBeats for Students program. We've tried to minimize the cost. Kits are about $100 if you purchase one with a Pi, or about $65 if purchased without. And there's also an option to purchase directly from Seed Studios in bulk, which could bring the cost down even further. The free curriculum is built around the AI for K-12 initiative that asks, what does every K-12 student need to know about AI? Because AI is so common, touching so many parts of our everyday life, it's crucial to consider what educated citizens need to know about it. The Association for the Advancement of AI and the Computer Science Teachers Association formed a joint working group to develop national guidelines for teaching AI to K-12 age students. AI for K-12 defines learning objectives by grade band, and we've used those to build instruction around the 5 big ideas in AI. 1, computers perceive the world using sensors. 2, agents maintain models of the world and use them for reasoning. 3, computers can learn from data. 4, making agents interact with humans is a substantial challenge for developers. And 5, the societal impact. For number 5, we're also bringing in Microsoft's responsible AI framework. In addition to AI for K-12, we've aligned the curriculum to what's important to our educators. The Computer Science Teachers Association standards, the National AFNR Common Career Technical Core standards, the Next Generation Science standards, and the Common Core standards for high school math. Resources for teachers include materials from AI for K-12, PowerPoint presentations with instruction scripts, background and lesson instructions, and thorough hardware build instructions. We're also including tools to hit the ground running, like this quick start guide. There's a lot of material, and so we want to make sure that everyone who picks up a kit knows exactly where to start and what to do. We've made the FarmBeats for Students package to be very easy to use. All of the tools and curriculum are easily downloaded from the Microsoft Educator Center, the MEC, as a bundle or as individual lessons. And because it's free and open source, educators can take and teach it all, or they can pick and choose what they want. They can edit, add, or remove content based on their curriculum and the needs of their students. For example, in Australia, our educators are adjusting the curriculum with Australian plants and maps to make it more relevant for students there. The student experiences are also designed to engage students, encouraging them to explore outside the presented activities. The Excel team has created custom workbooks using Data Streamer, allowing students to see their data in real time. They configure an agent and see how it impacts their hardware. They keep a data journal for data analysis. When their Pi isn't directly connected, they learn how that information provides insights into the decisions that they're making to increase efficiencies. We walk them through calculating growing degree units and also the challenges of working with big data. We have 2 activities using Loeb, and if you aren't familiar with Loeb, it's a machine learning tool that's very easy to use. It's free and private, and it's exportable. Loeb is designed to be easy enough for anyone to use without knowing any coding. You can train models for free on your own computer without uploading the data to the cloud, and you can also export your models for use on any platform. Loeb provides some project templates for image classification, with object detection and data classification coming soon. We have students using Loeb to identify pests in their garden and to identify nutrient deficiencies in their plants. The target audience for the kits right now is high school age students. We've partnered with the FFA in the United States and CSIRO in Australia to get a bulk of kits into the hands of their educators for use this year. We presented at the State of K-12 AI Education in Your State webinar and shipped sample kits to 8 states from California to Maryland. And in Illinois, students are already using the kits as part of their research projects. Students there are also partnered with students in Malawi who want to use the kits to learn how to improve crop production and to increase the survival rate of trees that are being planted there. Designed to be adaptable for school or home use. And if this year has taught us nothing else, it's that we need to think about education in new ways. We need to be ready to find new and different approaches to supporting our learners. And we feel that FarmBeats for Students meets those needs. Expansion opportunities are limited only by our imagination and your creativity. We can easily see expansion packs for agriculture with the existing kits, with new modules and activities and added hardware. We could reach new groups, adult learners, homeschoolers, master gardeners. We can dig deeper into more complex technology like coding, connections to Azure, including Azure FarmBeats. We can expand across industries with different kinds of sensors and activities. And last but certainly not least for this group, we'd love to see the kits used by universities. We've envisioned using the kits for education as part of digital agriculture curriculum, in labs and capstone courses, and as we've already done with hackathons. We've had some preliminary conversations with universities like yours who might be interested in using the technology and also in helping us build out the curriculum so it's a better fit for older students. So if you have any questions or interested in using the kits, please reach out to me. Or if you're interested in joining a consortium universities in working on enhancing the curriculum, we'd love to talk to you about that too. So I'll open it up for questions, and thanks for watching.
Okay, that's my little spiel about FarmBeats for Students. I saw there was one question about cost. Kits are available for purchase from Seed Studios. They're about $100 if you buy one with a pie, or they're about $65 if you already have a pie and you just want to get the rest of the kit.
That was great. That was a great video overview. Thanks. Thank you.
And hi, this is Vikram. I'm sorry I missed most of the presentation because I was coming off a parent-teacher conference. I told Stacey about this, but I do have a very quick question. So a couple of faculty here are running a summer camp for high school students on precision agriculture. And I don't know their plans yet, so I don't know if this will work out for this summer or not. But I'm just curious whether if they wanted to use the kits for projects, for student projects, whether they would be able to get some support for setting up the projects and also what the best way would be to work on with them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the kits are already available. So if they wanted hardware, they could get hardware. And then we do have a bunch of activities. There's 7 different activities that are already created that they could use if they wanted something that was guided instruction or something that was already pre-built. Or they could just use what we have as examples to kind of do something on their own. And everything, all the activities are all available out on the Microsoft Educator Center. And I'll put a link in the meeting notes when I send those out.
Thanks, that'll be very helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Looks like Phoebe has her hand up.
Thank you. You talked about this a little bit, Stacey, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what changes have been made since the first version of the kit and what the thinking behind that was. What kinds of lessons learned?
That's a good question. So the first kits were a little bit difficult to use technology-wise to get started. It was a little bit tough to get the kits registered, and then the back end was an IoT dashboard with all the student data, and parts of that were really cool, but parts of it also made it more difficult to use and get started. So the new kits are intended to be able to be used right away. Students are connecting their sensor kit with a USB serial cable directly to their laptops, and then they're streaming that data into Excel from their Pi. And then we've also built a set of curriculum, which we didn't have before with the old kits. So we're walking through instructors, showing them how they can teach the 5 big ideas for this age group for AI and machine learning, and then also supporting that with the different activities that have been put together. And then we're also trying to introduce students to some technology they might not have used before. So we know students have used Excel, but they might not have used some of the features. So we're trying to get them to use, understand how to use a pivot table or how to use different formulas inside of Excel. And then Loeb is going to be brand new for almost everyone. It's a pretty new product, but it's a really easy way to get students to understand what machine learning is and the different steps that going into building and training models in a very simple way with something that they can get their hands on. So we think that those differences and packaged together like that makes it just really a useful tool for teachers or even, individuals if they want to learn more about digital agriculture or AI. All right, if there's no other questions, Gloire, do you want to try to share? I've got your PDF here if you want me to try to share the PDF. I don't know if you had a video you were going to share or if you were just going to walk through your slides.
Gloria.
There was no video. There was no video, but I'm trying to share. I've tried both Google Chrome and Safari, and none of them seem to be. So, like, if I.
Okay. Oh, well, we're seeing.
What's being seen?
Now we have a blank white page. That's what I see here.
Yeah, it's a nice feature that Mac gives us in terms of privacy, but we also have to pay for it in other ways.
I have your PDF if you want me to share it. It won't look like a slideshow, but I'm happy to share my screen that has the presentation on it and I can walk through it.
Okay, let me see.
So now we see, yeah. Oh, no.
What shows up?
So we get a page that has the small version of the slide up in the corner. But it's not the full screen.
It has your speaker notes. It looks like,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess let's just do the PDF then.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell you to step through, and I'll use the slide notes on my side.
Yeah, let me zoom in over here first just to make it a little more. Then you can just tell me when you want me to switch pages.
Okay. Is there a way to make it full screen? Maybe on page view. What is page view?
Try Control L.
Control L.
No, not there.
No.
Oh.
It's not doing it.
it's okay. I can't see it. I can see it really. Yeah, I can see the slide.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gloire Rubambiza. I'm a PhD student in computer science at Cornell University. And today I'll be presenting our work titled Paradoxes in Producing the Future of Farm Work, Anticipating Social Impact Through the Lens of Early Adopters, aka us. So I'll start with the next slide. So I will first of all introduce you guys to sort of the narrative around the revolution in digital agriculture, and then we'll briefly touch upon some of our projects using FarmBeats and digital agriculture at Cornell. I'll highlight the research questions that we're trying to answer, and our approach to social impact of digital agriculture. And I'll present the results from some interviews we did last fall with other FarmBeats lead users. We'll discuss the implications and what could be some recommendations we're going to give out. And then where this, I'll close out with where this project is moving forward. So next slide. So in mainstream media, as they're trying to craft this narrative around the revolution in digital ag, where you hear of a dusty roads with robots buzzing through apple orchards. Next slide. And we're hyped that this revolution could have major ramifications that are going to shift entire industries, change like labor shortage, growers, farmers, and any stakeholders that you can plug in there. Next slide. So next one. So instead of calling them ramifications, what we're rephrasing this is as societal impact or social impact. And the social impact of DA will be the center of my short presentation today. So a lot of the hype in digital ag, it tends to bring together business people, engineers, startups, and researchers to realize an imagined future of a networked and buzzing farm. At Cornell, we're part of the research community stakeholders, and we've had a few years of experience in this arena. So back in 2018, for example, we observed a project that was flying drones at the Musgrave Research Farm at Cornell and trying to detect, using machine learning, detect northern corn leaf blight. And NCLB, northern corn leaf blight, is characterized by 10 lesions on the leaf, and then it can cut yields by up to 50%. And the question here was trying to see, is it possible to use TV white space to network these drones so they can start like streaming the data back to the farm? And at Cornell, next slide, we embarked on a project to try to analyze spectrum, like available spectrum at the Musgrave farm that you just saw and at Cornell's campus, to gauge like how feasible is it to deploy TV white spaces on a farm. And this was back in March when we were analyzing the farm spectrum, but then COVID happened, like logistics just kind of got in the way, and we didn't get to do the analysis again at Cornell's campus until September of 2020. Next slide. So at the same time, while we're trying to deploy the TV white space equipment, we also have been working with the FarmBeats hardware at Cornell to try to deploy them at an apple orchard to understand plant water stress. This was a deployment that we did since October of last year, and it's been ongoing. As you can see here, back in the winter, we had to dig up a sensor box out of 2 feet of snow. But one takeaway here is that all of these projects, what they have in common is they're building on the success of FarmBeats. Next slide. And here, switching seamlessly between computing and information science, or social science, is where my work stands. And we want to understand how our fellow researchers and practitioners visualize the future of farm work and how their work extending FarmBeats could bring about that future. Next slide. So this important research question is what our team, which is comprised of social and computer scientists, is trying to answer through an NSF-funded project. Next slide. In trying to answer the research question, our approach is twofold. The first, which is based on autobiographical design from HCI, is an ongoing reflection on the past 3 years of field experience to try to see how the frustrations, assumptions, and any other factors have shaped our research agenda. And then the second component includes interviews with other lead FarmBeats users as a chance for them also to reflect on their research process and for us to, first of all, tease out where the future of digital agriculture is going, and secondly, how platforms like FarmBeats could support that future. However, for this particular, for our particular purposes here for this presentation, I'm going to focus on the second part. And the interviews that we conducted were with our colleagues in the FarmBeats community, which included 6 participants, 5 of whom were researchers and 1 farmer, for approximately 1 hour each. And specifically, we're interested in finding out what assumptions, frustrations, and successes were experienced by other users, just like we were trying to build upon the success of FarmBeats. Secondly, how does the formation of this early user community facilitate current and future adoption of DA platforms like FarmBeats? And finally, what can we learn from the perceptions of early adopters on how the future of BA is going to be constructed? So I will now present 3 key results before going into the discussion of these questions. Next slide. So the first result sort of shows a tension between the researchers, like our visions as researchers, and the reality of learning and the grunt work required to actually realize those visions. As we can see here, where P5 says FarmBeats is one of those products that realizes the idea of you install it, you put batteries in it, you go home and you see the data. But then on the other hand, we see P1 who says, for the first week, I was connecting it to the debug pins rather than the actual pins to communicate to it being a sensor box. And he says, I was pulling my hair, like, why am I'm not able to read anything when I send to find out the version command. So this is the tension between the visions and the grunt work. Of course, some of the participants do acknowledge that the FarmBeats project version that we're working with is sort of the Microsoft research version that they got. So they do acknowledge that it's not perfect yet. So that's the tension between visions and the grunt work. Next slide. So given these early challenges, we're then curious on how do the researchers then relate their early woes and how they engage with social impact of what would be the social impact of their work in the future. And four of the 6 participants wanted to clarify before we even started the interview that their opinions of social impact may not be helpful at this stage because the system is not fully functional. Just like we see here, where P1 says, just a heads up, is like, we're still trying to set up the system and without having working without any issues. And then they go into like COVID happened, and this is just like ours, where we're trying to set things up by May, but they never got set up until end of May. And so like there's a lot of logistical hurdles to go through. But what's interesting is also that half of the participants don't think that end users of this product are going to experience the same hardships. Where we see participant 3 says, I think there are probably things that every user would probably go through. It was only a matter of time. These are logistical minor inconveniences. So then we're having these where the early challenges are not being discussed in terms of social impact. Like once we give this to the end user, what would that look like for them? Next slide. So finally, the third result is then bring up, given these tensions, how will the future of digital agriculture is being actually constructed? And in the partnerships between FarmBeats and universities, it appears the participants indicate that usually they find themselves having to compromise either about sensors or microcontrollers, etc. Where we see here, P2 says maybe the partner, being the university, needs to adjust things in the hardware part, or they, being Microsoft or FarmBeats, need to adjust things in their web platform to talk with a specific sensor that the university is going to bring in, like FarmBeats doesn't have in the list. So then what we see here is that the future is actually going to be born out of a compromise between how the researchers are navigating the sort of the constraints and how the FarmBeats allows any integrations with other systems. Next slide. So from our results, what we see is emerging 3 paradoxes. The first paradox is around material resistance. The second one is around resource allocation. And then the third one is going to be about the paradox of labor. But for this short talk, I'm going to focus on the first one, which is the paradox of material resistance. Next slide. Next one as well. Thank you. So the first paradox, what do I mean by material resistance? On the left side, we as researchers we dream up of seamless integration of hardware, software, AI, and the cloud towards a usable, simple digital farming experience. On the other hand, as early adopters, you see we're dealing with 2 feet of snow and digging sensor boxes out of snow. And we're spending weeks and months fighting material resistances in trying to create these futures that we're aiming towards. So to better understand this dilemma, it's necessary to tease out the goals of the designers and the users. The designers usually place constraints, but the users would like to tinker. And this is a very important thing because tinkering is it's sort of crucial to both academia, but also to farmers. Both of them do some tinkering with the equipment that you give them. So then if we extend this analogy, you can see where the future of farm work and its social impact is actually going to be the product of how the researchers are navigating these material constraints and material resistances. So that's the paradox. Next one. So with this paradox come three implications that we can see here. The first implication is that technology naturally undergoes evolution, and the vision of a plug-and-play system doesn't fit well with the tinkering that farmers and researchers are used to. As one participant in our study indicated, they've rewired their equipment to work better for their particular area that's a little bit hilly, right? Secondly, social impact discussions in this work is usually sidelined by researchers until the system is fully functional. As we said, where he was giving me a heads up that I don't think the system is ready for us to start talking about it. So then, as researchers, we're so consumed with building in the present that we don't look up to the future until we've created the future. So it's like we're saying the future will be discussed in the future. And then the last insight I want to give you is regarding hindsight bias, at least in research, where once the system is not fully functional, any significant challenges that we've experienced are discounted as something that will be experienced, will not be experienced by the end user. But as research from Jenna Burrell in 2018 shows, this is not the case because in rural infrastructure, it's more likely to break often and least likely to be repaired in terms of its repair priority. So then the question to ask is, are we seeing this hindsight bias because the technology was still in the research version, or is it because social impact in computer science research is usually left as open for future work? That's one question that I would like to leave you with. Next slide. So besides the implications, I didn't want to just sort of give the insights, but also not offer some recommendations because it's an important part because it's going to end up affecting the social impact in the future. So to those three implications that I mentioned, how technology undergoes evolution, what I would like to recommend is, can we design for the average farm and leave in room for tinkering and like making sure tweaking is accessible to the people, to researchers and farmers alike? On the sidelining of social impact discussions, I would suggest thinking differently, nay, actually embracing discussions of social impact early in the design process. Lastly, on the hindsight bias, that is considering past challenges as minor inconveniences, I would suggest engaging with rural communities on repair infrastructure that could come with the system you're trying to deploy in rural regions. Because let's face it, we have a lot more resources in a university. So repair in a university research labs does not equal repair in a rural context. Next slide. So now that we've heard from researchers, engagement with farmers and other ag stakeholders is going to be the next phase of our work in this societal impact of farm networking project that I mentioned before. And this is, again, a team of computer and social science, and we're observing these interactions while we're building these computing systems. We're also observing and reflecting on our own research agendas. Next slide. So I presented just a few of the results from our work, and we're still analyzing the results to flesh out the other paradoxes. And the workshop paper on the first paradox is actually going to appear in May at the Automation Experience Workshop at CHI 21, which is the top venue for human-computer interaction research. The full conference paper is forthcoming this fall, and we're looking forward to working more closely with the FarmBeats community, the workshop community. Next. So with that, I wanted to mention that this research was supported by the NSF under 2 grants, a Microsoft Investigator Fellowship, and the Cornell Institute for Digital Agriculture, or CEDA. The opinions expressed in here are those of the researchers, not necessarily NSF, Microsoft, or CEDA. And with that, I would like to take your questions.
That was great. Thank you, Gloire.
Thank you.
So in the next
Sorry,
phase, oh, sorry, I was going to ask a quick question. In the next phase, where you're working more, your goal is to work with the rural communities. Did I get that right? With the farm stakeholders?
Yeah.
What
So
will you be? Yeah, what will you actually be? Will you be interviewing them, or will you actually have them working hands-on with the technology? Like,
so what we're going to be doing is actually, there's already been like in one of the papers I mentioned where people were repairing rural infrastructure using an SMS app. What we'd like to do here is there's been previous technologies that have been deployed to farms. So we're trying to see analogous technologies like FarmBeats that have already been deployed and how did that work out? And then try to then apply that analogy to where the future is going.
got it.
Yeah.
Great. Sorry, Vikram, I think you were also had a question.
Yeah. Hi, Gloire. I really enjoyed the talk. I have a very narrow question. It's about something specific you said. You said that I think one of your first observations was that plug and play designs were actually made it more difficult for people to tinker. And I was a little surprised to hear that, just because usually we think of plug and play as something that makes it easier to make changes to a system and replace one component with another and upgrade and so on. And I'm just wondering if I have either the wrong view of how this actually gets used, or if I'm not thinking about, or the terminology is just different from the way you think about it.
Yeah, perhaps it could just be a difference in the terminologies, but I'm going to use an example that I heard from this study where you could have let's say a tractor from John Deere and it's plug and play, but if you can't change, let's say the blade or something to fit your particular hilly area, then it's plug and play. You can use it in a very perfect farm. Everything is flat. So it's plug and play. It's easily usable, but what if I want to change some of the components inside and I can't access those components? So from the get-go, I can get it to work fine. But what if I want to change it is where the issue, I think, comes in. So I guess we would like to go for, yeah, plug and play, but still a little bit of tinkering is possible.
Okay. Thanks.
Good question.
Any other questions for Gloire? All right, I'll make sure and post the PDF out on the team site if that's all right with you.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you for helping with the technical difficulties.
Sure, no problem. I know it can be challenging. We don't want it to slow you down.
Yeah.
All right, I don't believe we have our next meeting on the calendar yet, but we'll put it out there for probably the 3rd or 4th week of next month. And we've been looking at Wednesdays, so I think Wednesdays will probably still be the right spot. If you have a problem with Wednesdays or your schedule is going to be different next month, please let me know, and then we can see if we need to make adjustments to the day or time. And if you have anything that you were looking to discuss next month or in the future, you can let me or Elizabeth know. Or if you have something that you want to present to the group, we'd be happy to give you some time, a platform that you can share.
Great.
Anything else this month anybody wants to bring up? Or Elizabeth, did you have anything in closing?
Nope, I think you covered it. Definitely feel free to email us or send us a note in the Teams chat about topics for next time. And thank you very much for joining us today, Gloire. Great presentation. Stacey, thank you for the overview of the kits. Those look great.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Yep, thanks.